In the summer of 1947, Bryce Losky, a shy boy, and his family shift home. There he met a strange neighbor girl named Julie Baker. At that time Bryce had just finished first grade and was about to begin second grade. From the very first moment she saw him, Julie fell in love with his eyes and began chasing him, while Bryce kept trying to avoid her. On the first day at his new school, Bryce discovered that Julie was in the same class. She hugged him in front of everyone and his classmates started teasing him. As the years passed, and by the time they reached 6th grade, Bryce still continued avoiding her. He even made a plan to make her lose interest in him by spending time with Sherry Stalls, a girl Julie disliked. At first, the plan worked. Julie grew jealous. But things didn't go as expected for long. Bryce's so-called best friend, Garrett, developed feelings for Sherry, and Sherry eventually broke up with Bryce when she learned he only used her to drive Julie away. Julie, after learning this, returned to her normal self. When they reached 7th grade, Bryce's grandfather came to live with them. He would often sit in his chair and watch outside, lost in memories of his wife, but he rarely spoke to Bryce about his feelings. One day, he stopped Bryce and asked about Julie, the girl Bryce had been trying to avoid, because she had appeared in the local newspaper. Julie had refused to climb down from her beloved sycamore tree when woodcutters came to cut it down. She had grown up climbing that tree and watching the sunrise and sunset from its branches. Thinking back to that day, Bryce remembered how she begged him and their friends to help her stop the woodcutters. He regretted leaving her alone and going to school without helping. His grandfather told him to invite Julie over someday because he admired her courage.
After the tree incident, Julie became quiet and withdrawn. Bryce felt sorry for her, though a part of him was relieved that she had stopped chasing him. One evening, while she sat sadly at her study table, her father surprised her with a painting of the sycamore tree. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she smiled with gratitude. Every morning and night, she would stare at that painting, remembering the tree she loved. For the school science fair, Bryce made a project about volcano eruptions, while Julie worked on hatching an egg, and she won the competition. Later she raised several chickens, and as they grew, they began laying so many eggs that she sold some to her neighbors and shared the Bryce's family, believing that Bryce's mother had helped her own mother many times. But inside Bryce's home, they were uncomfortable with the eggs, worrying that they might contain unhatched chicks, and thinking their backyard wasn't clean where Julie kept her chickens, they assumed the egg might be contaminated. They asked Bryce to return the eggs, but he, fearing it would hurt Julie, chose to secretly throw them away instead. This continued until one day, Julie brought another dozen eggs to Bryce's door. She was delighted when Bryce told her she could ride the school bus again. She had been avoiding the bus ever since the tree incident. Still standing in Bryce's courtyard, Julie thought she had finally been missed by him. But moments later Bryce came outside to throw away the eggs again, and she caught him. When she found out that his family never ate her eggs, she felt hurt and took back her eggs. She told him that she sold the same eggs to neighbors for 60 cents a dozen. That night during dinner, Julie's parents immediately sensed that something was wrong with their daughter. When she suggested cleaning their messy yard, her father explained that they were only renting the house and that yard maintenance was the owner's responsibility. Her mother, saddened and angered by how Bryce's family saw them as untidy, argued with her husband, a fight Julie had never witnessed before. But being loving parents, both apologized to her later that night. Julie went to sleep feeling proud and blessed to have them. The next day, Bryce saw Julie cleaning her yard. At school, she avoided him completely. When Bryce returned home one afternoon, he was shocked to see his grandfather helping Julie with the yard work. For a whole week, they worked together. Bryce grew angry watching from his window but didn't show it openly. Even Bryce's father was annoyed, complaining that his father never bonded so well with his own grandson. Later, Bryce's father and grandfather argued briefly about it. After Bryce's parents went inside, his grandfather took Bryce for a walk to clear their minds. They passed the spot where the sycamore tree once stood, and his grandfather again praised Julie for her bravery. One morning, while his grandfather was out of town, Bryce saw Julie watering her yard. He approached her from behind and apologized for the eggs. After the apology, he felt relieved, as though things had returned to normal. Soon after, during breakfast, Bryce's mother announced that she had invited Julie's family for a sit-down dinner. Bryce and his father were shocked and displeased, but his grandfather agreed happily. At school, during lab class, Julie's friend caught Bryce staring at her. The next day while Julie was sitting, thinking about Bryce in the library, her friend arrived and told her that Bryce had a crush on her, and she had seen him staring at her during class. She also said Bryce and Garrett had been talking about her and took her, but when they approached to listen, they only heard the end of the conversation, when Garrett mentioned that Bryce never liked Julie earlier and talking about how Julie's father devoted much of their earnings to support Julie's abnormal uncle. Hearing this, Julie told herself she no longer liked Bryce. Meanwhile, Bryce stepped outside and admitted to himself that he truly liked Julie, and he wished he could punch Garrett. On Sunday morning, Julie and her father went to visit her mentally challenged uncle for his birthday. When they returned, Julie's mother was filled with excitement. She told them they were invited to dinner at Bryce's house. At first Julie and her father didn't want to go, still hurt by what had happened. But seeing her mother's happiness, they agreed. When dinner night arrived, Bryce's mother rushed around preparing everything. Bryce, meanwhile, dressed up, wanting to impress Julie without making it obvious. At her home, Julie looked at the painting of the sycamore and thought about everything Bryce had done. Anger filled her again, and she almost refused to go. But seeing her mother's excitement, she agreed quietly. When they arrived, Bryce's family welcomed them warmly. Bryce tried to talk to Julie, but she told him she heard what he and Garrett said in the library. She was angry, so she avoided him through dinner. After dinner, before leaving, Julie apologized to Bryce for being rude earlier. A few days later, the list for the basketball auction was posted, and Bryce's name was on it. Before the auction, everyone expected the school's most popular girl to bid on him. Even Sherry Stalls planned to bid. Bryce still thought about Julie, and Julie, though trying to forget him, ended up bidding on a boy named Eddie, which made Bryce sad. Many girls bid for Bryce, and Sherry won him. During their lunch together, Bryce kept staring at Julie, upset that she had not chosen him. Finally, he stood up, walked toward Julie, and tried to kiss her, but she ran home. Later Bryce went to her house to see her, but she didn't come out. He tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. After 2 days without seeing him, Julie thought it was truly over. Then one afternoon, she heard noise outside. When she looked out, she saw Bryce digging in her yard. She tried to stop him, but her father stepped in and said he had given Bryce permission, leaving her shocked and confused. Then Bryce left for a moment and returned carrying a sycamore tree sapling. She smiled as she watched from inside, then she went outside. Together, they planted the tree.